Alright, chapter 1.1b, day 2 of the stuff that we learned yesterday, which is variables, pretty much translating them into equations. So what we should have learned is how to translate basic expressions using those key words. But the question is, what if there are two words in the statement? Pretty much this is what our focus is for this section here. So a compound expression is going to have more than one operation. So a brief overview, quickly, sum of 2 divided by is another operation, a number, and 6. And notice that we have two operations, sum and divided by, and we have three values, 2, x, and 6. Now you can use an in most cases, but again, that's what we're dealing with now. 9 is a number, less than is an operation phrase, quotient is an operation phrase, 2 is a number is x. There again we have two operations, so it's a compound expression, 9, 2, and x also there. Then you have 3 times the difference, and don't worry about the of there because difference of isn't really it, and then 3 and a number. So notice again you've got two operations and three different things to look at there, so you want to make sure that you understand how to work those, and that's pretty much what today is about. So how do you arrange problems when multiple operations are being used? So multiple operations are being used, what you want to do is, if you are given more than one operation, do the multiplication or division first. If you remember your order of operations, which we'll talk about in future lesson, I think chapter 2 next week, multiplication division goes before addition subtraction, and so therefore give multiplication and division the first option. Sometimes it won't work, but always give it the first option. Pretty much you're going to offer multiplication and division the first plate, and if they want to eat it, they take it. If they don't want to eat it, they send it to addition or subtraction, and you move from there. Again, sometimes the wording is awkward. When that happens, don't give it to multiplication division first, go the opposite direction. So awkward wording include but are not limited to a phrase like 3 times the sum. How do you take 3 times a sum? It should be 3 times a number. So when you see that, you should say that doesn't make sense. I think this is the one where I go to this first instead of that. The quotient of the difference. Again, the quotient of what? The difference. That doesn't make sense. So in this case, I wouldn't look at the division. I would look at the subtraction first. 2 divided by the difference. Again, 2 divided by a number, 2 divided by 1, all those work, but 2 divided by the difference doesn't make sense. So again, that's not going to be my first option. That is. So whenever you see a weird phrase, stay away from the multiplication division portion and go to the addition subtraction portion. And that's really what you're looking at in that, alright? So a couple awkward examples before we get to some things to work through. Again, marking this up first, that's why I want you to make sure you learn how to mark it. 2 times the difference of a number and 5. If times was first, focus on this. So 2 times the difference. That's a weird phrase, which means obviously multiplication is not first. We're going to instead look at the difference of a number and 5, which we know to be x minus 5. And how do I do 2 times all that? You'll have to put a parentheses around this whole thing and put a 2 there. That is the tricky question for your test. It's the tricky question for your quiz. The good news for you is missing this question won't cost you too much. The thing is, for those of you who actually want to be good at this, you have to make sure you're aware of it. And again, I can only teach to your level of pride, so I'm not going to force you to be good at it, but it's something you need to look out for. Here, quotient, 6 plus a number and 5. Again, if quotient was first and you read this phrase, the quotient of 6 plus, quotient of 6, there shouldn't be a sign in my quotient, so what I'm going to do is look at plus. And my plus phrase would be here, 6 plus a number, which is 6 plus x. Now, if I take that and turn that into its own phrase, the quotient of this and 5 means it's going to be a fraction with this on top and 5 on the bottom. This doesn't pop up on any of your assessments, but I think that you should see it because I'd rather make sure you're aware of what's ahead of you at some point. So let's look at some examples real fast, and then I believe this is it. I think you got 4 examples to look at real fast with me, and that is your lesson. Again, first thing I'm going to do is go through and make sure I mark off everything as it is, boxing my operations and underlining my numbers. 6.7 more than the product of 5 and n. Again, always look to multiplication division first. That is a weaker sign, so I'm going to look here. If I look at that phrase, the product of 5 and n is just 5n. So I took care of that. But how do I do 6.7 more than? That does mean plus, But remember that more than means 6.7 moves to the back, so it'll actually be plus 6.7. Alright. The difference of 3 and twice the number h. The difference of 3 and twice the number h. Okay, again, difference, 3, that's a number or something we don't know about. A number h. So this is tricky here. I'm marking this as an operation because if you do something twice, then you're doing it 2 times, which pretty much means you're multiplying times 2. And so if you read this as multiplication, twice a number h is going to be 2h. Now pay attention here though, because difference means you got to pay attention to the order. Difference means subtract, but it's not a less than or more than, which means whatever's first goes first. And since 3 is first, it's going to be 3 minus 2h, not 2h minus 3. Now if this was 3 less than the twice the number h, then the 3 would move to the back. But because this is first, it must stay first in the order here. Alright? 2 times the sum of a number and 9, number r and 9, which is actually important. Again, multiplication, give it the option first. 2 times the sum does not make sense to me. So 2 times the sum is not going to be it, but let's look at the sum of a number 9, which is x plus 9. How do I do 2 times all that? You put a parentheses around it, you put a 2 there, and you move. 9.7 less the quotient of 4 and a number. Again, less is here, 9.7, quotient 4, and a number. The first thing we should be looking at is multiplication division. The quotient of 4 and a number is 4 over x. So that does translate, which is good. 9.7 less that. This means subtract. But is this the one where it switches? No, which means 9.7 because it's in front should stay in front. 9.7 minus 4 over x is what you should end up with. Alright? So other than that, which 2 operations are given first choice should be your multiplication and division. When multiplying by a sum or difference, what must be used is parentheses. Because again, it would be 2 times x plus 5 or 3 times x minus 2 or something like that. So I'm about to put these notes up, and they're just the notes themselves. If you need the examples, feel free to go back and copy those. I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier, but it is the beginning of the year, and I forgot all about that. But again, putting this up here, giving you time to pause it, and then your final thoughts down here. So again, be sure to answer this last question and then get your credit for the day. Good luck.